Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast. I'm delighted to introduce the marvelous team behind the upcoming game Pig Detective 3. Before I do any more, I'm going to say that again, so bear with me. Grüß Gott, meine Damen und Herren. Ich freue mich vorzustellen das wunderbare Team für den neuen Spieler Schwein Detective 3. Los geht's.
Oh Gott
With
sei
me
Dank, ich
to-
dachte, wir müssen das auf Englisch machen.
With me today, I am joined by, very, very lucky to be joined by the team. We have Sebastian, Lotte, Ben, Dirty Harold, Sean, Reddish Boat, Ed, 209B, and Andy, aka Andy Mation. Thank you all for joining, and I'll jump right in, and I'll start off by asking Lotte, for the benefit of the 3.5 people who haven't yet played Pig Detective, can you catch us up to the start of Pig Detective 3? What's happened so far?
Wait, you say the stream was about 90 minutes long.
Yeah, so it'll have to be the footnotes.
The footnotes are in Pig Detective 3. You will find the recaps for Pig Detective 1 and 2 and watch those. Basically, the game is about a pig who is a detective and he gets in trouble. And he gets in so much trouble that he needs a vacation, and that is where Pig Detective 3 starts.
So Pig Detective 3 is basically Pig Detective's holiday.
Yes.
Excellent.
Hopefully.
So much trouble that he needs 2 recaps.
2 recaps. That's a lot of recapping. So I'm going to start off with a question that's slightly out of left field, and I'm just going to ask to the whole team basically: do you guys just all hate cat? Because you really don't seem to like poor Tom when he's playing the cat. What influence on the choice of animals? What influences the story and the character traits? Do you think about that when you're choosing the characters?
That's not fair. We like cats.
Oh, okay.
Some of us own cats.
Oh,
Cats are
okay.
all right.
That's
like
fine.
it.
That's fine. It was the vibe I was getting playing Pig Detective 2 earlier on. It was like it seemed that Pig Detective really didn't like the cat.
You know, I've never thought about that actually. Which cat is there in Pig Detective 2 that comes up again? Am I?
Have you played Pig Detective 2, Ed?
I have. It was a long time ago. Which is
Remember Sheriff Cat?
That's the one.
Of course.
Sheriff Cat.
Sheriff Cat. The clue's in the name, you see.
The prompt keeps coming up. Stupid cat, and I just wondered whether there was a dislike of cats.
Oh, that's not our dislike. That is Pig Detective's dislike of the specific cat. If it would have been a dog, he would say "stupid dog." We're not cat bashing here.
I think if
No.
anyone had seen Ed's last stream, the way he talks about his own cat, I think that might have bled into the game. So
I also like having Tom play the cat each time as well. That nothing there, Lotte?
Well, because Tom has a cat that is called Tom, so maybe that's a clue too.
good save.
I mean,
So-
we like every animal. We like all animals.
Excellent.
I mean, look,
So-
Andy is a duck.
So
Can't see that.
in terms of talking about Pig Detective 3 specifically, it's been we've all been looking forward to this game for a very, very, very long time. We saw the teaser for it for the first time during the Dreamscom event. How big is Pig Detective 3 compared to the first 2 episodes?
Way too big.
Way too big. Do we know what the playthrough time is approximately or anything?
It's just way too big. I mean, I think that's your answer. It's
Fair play. Fair play.
We
No,
don't know the playthrough time yet because no one has played it who doesn't know the game. So
Of course.
That's going to be really
course.
interesting. I was so excited watching people play the last one and seeing them figure it out and doing like long streams. So it's going to be amazing to watch people see how they get on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of streamers who are looking forward to this. There's a lot of people who are very excited to kind of see this finally in the wild.
I can tell you though, if I put all of Pig Detectives VO back to back, it is in fact 3 days long.
Wow.
That
That
Excellent.
is insane.
That's
Good to know.
and if you believe that, then I don't know what.
I was doing some mental arithmetic there, going, nah, can't be right.
But the map is at least twice as big, I think, as in Cowboytown. I think that's how open world games are measured by map sizes. Am I right?
Yeah, that's certainly that's one way to do it. So, in terms of the actual story itself for Pig Detective 3, there's quite a lot that's still ongoing. I don't want to give any plot points away for anyone who hasn't played 1 or 2, but we have some questions from episodes 1 and 2. What was the biggest challenge in actually writing the story itself?
Oh, that's me. There was no challenge. Thanks for the question.
So
No,
modest.
it's
very
it's
modest.
fine.
No,
It's
totally
easy.
not challenging at all.
So when you were sitting down to write Pig Detective episode 1, did you have a full story already in your mind, kind of all mapped out of where it would go, or did it evolve as you wrote it?
We have a kind of a big idea, and when we sat down and started with Pig Detective 3, we had that idea, and the rest just came naturally from all the people who contributed in a way. Everybody who I liked and thought he might be good to voice a character or something, all that went into it. But it wasn't difficult to do.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to this as well. Whilst Lotta has written the main bulk of the storylines and all of that, she's also really accommodating if one of us has a bit of an idea and says, "Oh, what if this? What if that?" Or if we have a playthrough and see, "Oh, that just doesn't quite make sense. What if this or that?" And it's been really rewarding to be able to just pop some ideas in there every now and again, and to have those taken on board and think, well, maybe yes, maybe no. But yeah, I think that's been a really core part of the team in the story writing as well.
My favorite
So-
thing is asking Lotta about what it all means, because I think she gets really angry with me. I think about the story in Pig Detective way more than I really should do for what it is, and like I'll just be like, come onto the Discord at like 2 a.m. and like ask some profound question about, because Lotta's put so much work into not just like this story or the previous ones, but like mapping out the universe. So much of it makes loads and loads of sense, and like so much of it is only hinted at. There's like I said, I think about it way too much, and like I'm trying to figure out what. For example, like we were talking the other day about how there's a lot of ducks in the game, and like came to Lotta and said like, what's that all about? And she's like, there's a reason, and I still haven't quite got to the core of why that is, but like it all means something.
I like
And-
that about Ed, actually. He's very inquisitive. That is maybe because he is the detective, maybe that's rubbing off on him. Or maybe we just make a really good choice when we casted him as Pig
Yeah,
Detective.
I don't understand anything, and I think that fits George really well.
So what we're seeing here is that things from the game, from the episodes, are starting to bleed into real life. We've got real life Ed 209B turning into Pig Detective with his inquisitiveness, and the cat being disliked also turning into real life, following on from what Ed 209B also said of his cat on the most recent stream.
I think that's
So-
not fair. He was being a twat at that point. I mean, he's not.
Poor Mr. B.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
He's a lovely cat, really.
And maybe cats will get redeemed in Pig Detective 3 and are very nice. Who knows?
That's very exciting. Very exciting. So you mentioned about the voices that that you use within the community. It's no spoilers to say that I'm lucky enough to be one of the voices in the upcoming episode, which I'm very proud of. But talking about more generally, how have the wider community helped in terms of the creation of the Pig Detective universe, or the PDU, if you will? Sebastian, if we can go to you for that one.
We have a few people who contributed things, but I don't want to get into spoiler territory. Puridoke helped out a bit, and Dorian and Violet Better. So we had some really talented people contributing things, but I can't talk about specifics.
No, completely understood. But was it just a case of kind of putting a shout out to those specific people? Was it based on things that you'd seen them do?
We see the amazing stuff people are creating in streams, and so if someone pops up in our feed and it seems like a good choice, it's relatively easy to approach them.
And in terms of Pig Detective 3 specifically, so I know, having just played Pig Detective 2, in the closing credits, there's quite a few mentions to elements from the Dreamiverse and to a number of kind of audio tracks and things like that. Within Pig Detective 3, has it been a lot more kind of, for want of a better phrase, a lot more in-house development that's happened in terms of the assets?
Yeah, because we have such amazing people like Ben on the team now, and Sean and Andy Redishboard. We did really, I think, 99% in-house, and it took obviously audio things from MM. But this was really nice to get really specific, and I could say, Ben, can you please make this? I want it like this because it would really fit the scene, and yeah, I think it worked out really well.
And so I guess the follow-up question to that is one for Ben, really. Dirty Harold's. How did you find that kind of process? Was it kind of, I need to make sure that everything is of a similar theme, or the style was the same, or was it kind of a case of, now I need to make this, and this is, how?
I think at the
was
start there is a bit just trying to work out what sort of style they're after, and then going back and forth a couple of times with some different sculpts, and then finally settling on a style, and then it's pretty easy after that.
Because I've seen some of the screenshots, and from the trailer from Dreamscom, the progression that I've seen. If we were to look at screenshots from Pig Detective 1, Pig Detective 2, and just what I've seen so far of Pig Detective 3, it's almost the equivalent of a generational leap, and it looks incredible. Pig Detective 3 really, really looks incredible. And again, has that been through the benefit of kind of the learning experience that you've had, Ben, in terms of the asset creation?
I think so. Just every part of this new Pig Detective is really a huge step up, I think. Like the sound and even the lighting, and I think because it's a bigger team now, we've been able to just go a bit harder, make it look nicer, sound nicer.
I think the original Pig Detective 1 as well, even though like relatively now it looks a little basic, like it had such a strong sort of design ethos to it. I think it's very easy, I imagine, to jump into something like this and sort of understand what the intention is, even if like there's room for like improving some of the sculpts and some of the the locations. It's like the work from Seven Lotta originally, like it was so it was just really, really good concept.
And having that. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember you guys streaming Pig Detective 1, the original one. And when leaving the Cheese Palace for the first time and coming out on the street, you guys were, oh boy, this looks so amazing. And when I look back to it, it looks so awful now. And we came a long way.
It's Dream's history, because at the time nobody was really doing narrative. Well, there were a few out there, but there was nothing quite that had so much detail in what you were trying to do with that initial sort of set, and like the amount of characters and like the level of sort of intrigue. There was, even though it was very sort of like tongue-in-cheek humor, I think you had put a lot of thought into the little bits of detail that you did get in there. So
because I recall that originally, when it was first on the stream, it was the very kind of blocked out version, if I recall correctly. And it was actually in stream that you guys, the Media Molecule, started doing some of the voices, just reading it out. Is that how you ended up as the role of Pig Detective, Ed?
That is true. Yeah, Lotta got in touch afterwards and said like, we really enjoyed listening to you have fun with the game, and like, would you mind doing a few lines? I think it was initially going to be just a few, and then it became it became the whole thing. And then I think you must have already been working on. I can't remember the chronological the order of it. Was it during Big Detective 1 that you were already on? When I was doing the voices for 1, I think you were already working on 2.
Yeah.
And then you came back and said like, we need to redo it, remaster it. So I had to basically do all the lines again for 1. And yeah, it was from the stream, and John and Abby were there next to me doing other characters. And I think Cromwell is still the same Cromwell from John's sort of, this is preposterous.
On that note, are you kind of relieved that you didn't try and do kind of an accent as such when you were reading as Pig Detective?
I can't remember if I did try or not. But yeah, I'm glad that I didn't. It's just sort of my normal deadpan, gormless voice.
It's not a gormless voice. That's not quite what I'd say. But I will admit that hearing you on the podcast, I am struggling not to just picture Pig Detective now. And just talking to Pig Detective. I mean that with no offense, obviously.
None taken. He's very naive, and he's very considered in what he says, which is not me. I've got a stutter, and I like, I'm not particularly thoughtful in the way I string my sentences together. But Pig Detective, he says what he means, and he means what he says. So it's it's easier to do that. So those sort of lines when they're just right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of talking about voice acting, Reddish Boat, I'm going to come to you on this one because you also have quite a few different characters, and you have quite a few different accents that you have to put on as well. I'm going to say it, Farmer Bird from Pig Detective 2 is that accent is just sensational. Is it challenging trying to do the accents and make sure that they're varied enough? How do you approach that? What's your references and stuff?
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, usually when Lotta comes to me and says, "Oh, can you do some voice acting for so and so?" She doesn't really necessarily give a direction on how she wants it done. I just sort of interpret it. So with the Farmer Bird, it was set in the South, I assume. And so yeah, I went with a Louisiana sort of bird lawyer accent from Futurama meets Foghorn Leghorn, because it's basically the only Southern accent I can do. So I just stuck with that, and it happened to be okay. I think people liked it. And then I think a lot of the times I play rats as well, and I'm not sure what that says subconsciously. As we go back to Lotta not liking cats, I think yeah. I don't know what she thinks of me, but I tend to just do the only other American accent I can do, which is New York, I guess, vaguely New York. So yeah, I just sort of look at the character and go, well, what do I think this person sounds like, and borrow from something that I've already seen in a different show or something like that, and just tweak it slightly. Basically, it's quite lazy.
And in terms of the again talking about the vocals, Ben, you've voiced a couple of the characters as well. How did you find that from your side of things? Because I guess it's a very different thing to sculpting and animating and painting and doing set design and stuff. It's a very different thing to do the voice acting, and yet you pull it off really, really well. Did you have to do lots of takes on that? Kind of how did you approach that?
Yeah, I do many takes, and then I do retakes again. Then I'll delete all those and I'll do them again.
For real? Is that real?
Yeah. And I do I like when I read to the kids at night, I always put on heaps of stupid accents and voices. So I like doing that, but I think Mr. Rayburn's been pretty hard to keep. I always forget how he talks, so I have to go back and listen to what I've done before. And
Rayburn is one of my favorite. Rayburn's definitely one of my favorite voices in the series.
Yeah, and Rayburn has had such a tough start when we asked Ben. Remember that?
I remember it. I sent the voice to you, and it was too posh. I think it was. Was it?
It was not fat enough.
Yeah, not fat enough.
Fatter Ben, fatter.
It was so embarrassing.
Say it fatter.
Never met Ben before. He could have been a fat guy, and I was like, "You have to be fatter." Oh, sorry. I didn't know.
So how did you go about adding weight to the voice, Ben?
I don't know.
I think he
Just-
just felt it.
You
He
just got to go
started to
deeper.
feel it.
I just-
People
I
start
just-
to feel their anime with time.
Spoke a bit grumpier and squished my neck down a bit.
Could we get, could we
Seemed
get a
help.
little? Could we get a few lines of Rayburn, or is that too putting you on the
Oh.
spot too?
Wouldn't even know what to say. No.
Just no. Fine.
A very Rayburn answer.
Yeah,
No, that's awesome.
can't afford
He
it.
really fills the character now. There's one scene where he laughs in Pick Detective 3, and I was chilled to the bone.
Oh, I
Really?
love that. So good.
Exciting. Very exciting.
I imagine that's like a really big, like evil bad guy comedy laugh that just goes on for far too long.
Now,
Actually, it does. I do this weird thing when I'm doing the lines, where my head shakes and stuff. So after doing a whole lot, like my neck hurts a lot afterwards. So it's, not good.
No.
because you have to hold your head in a certain way to get the
I don't-
voice.
Yeah, I don't know why. I
That's
probably don't have to do
commitment.
that.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
Oscar. Give him an Oscar.
No, his name's Ben.
Get out. That's enough.
I'm not even sorry. We've only just started. Now, I can't talk about voices and voice acting without bringing up one name. Troy Baker. How on earth did that even happen?
He's just nice, isn't he?
He's nice.
Nice
I
guy.
mean,
He's a nice guy.
clearly legendary, but how did that even come into being? Did you contact him? Like, did you just ask?
Oh, it came into being because we stayed up till 12 midnight at a time where we didn't, because we didn't have a pandemic. And Abby and Siobhan were in America promoting Dreams, which was about to come out. And they were talking to Greg Miller on his podcast. And they were joking about it. They were joking about, wouldn't it be fun if Troy Baker was voice acting in Pick Detective? And they suddenly found out that they could bring it about because Greg Miller, he knows Troy Baker, and Abby obviously knows Team Pick Detective. So they sent us a message, a text, give us lines for Troy Baker. And luckily we were up and we gave them lines, and here we are.
Oh my god! So you
And
were
that's
literally
what happened.
wow.
That's
How-
the draw of Pig Detective. Like people are just clambering to be part of it.
Standard, yeah, absolutely. So did you kind of? How did that feel? Did you kind of wonder if it was a joke, or did you kind of just scramble to get some lines together, or did you have
We,
it all?
we didn't believe it at first.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was a joke, but I had 2 lines. I sent her 2 lines actually. I said, is 2 lines okay?
Yeah,
And
we
she
said,
said,
give me 1 line for Trey Baker, and Lotte sent 2 lines.
Oh, can
so
I ask?
you
Can I ask
have
a
to
Pig
be
Detective?
bold.
Can I ask a Pig Detective lore question? Because this is again something that keeps me up at night. Did the lines that you gave to him, which I'm not going to spoil, obviously, but did they exist before you got
Yeah, they did
Troy?
exist. I took them away from Mr. Casey Jones.
So
Scamble.
hold on. Pig Detective exclusive. Mr. Casey Jones had lines stolen from him by Troy Baker.
Or did I just say that to spoil Mr. Casey Jones's day?
Yeah, that happens a lot
Gee.
as well.
It does seem that Mr. Casey Jones has been the butt of some jokes recently in terms of
I think he won't be
understudies
able
and
to
stealing
sleep.
lines.
No. It's too bad. I mean, Mr. Casey Jones is one of the best voice actors I've ever met. And he's punctual, cheerful, like all other voice actors, actually. They're all the same. But he does everything. Whatever we ask, if we say, Casey, we need you now, he turns up here. Although he lives in America, he just swings by
Yeah,
on his
you heard
magical unicorn, and he does it.
You heard it here first. Casey Jones will do anything. So
That's it. That's it.
For his friends.
That's
It's
it.
been-
Another Pig
it's-
Detective exclusive.
It's a bit needy, really, isn't it?
That's mean.
Well, I mean, he is trying to get an MP this year, so he's trying his hardest. Bless him. You got to put the work in.
Really? Never heard of it.
What's an MP?
So the voices are spectacular across the Pig Detective series. We have Tom, Abby, John Beach, Mr. Casey Jones, now Troy Baker, Ed, Reddish Boat, Ben. We've got a huge range of people who have contributed their voices.
It's
But
almost 40 people.
if 40 people, that's
Almost.
crazy.
I think it's 38, 39.
That's
I
that's
lost
cra-
track.
It's got to be the biggest collaborative effort in terms of voice cast in Dreams at the moment. I think it'll take a lot to beat that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
for sure.
guarantees 40 likes.
I think it's safe to assume we'll have more than 40 likes on PD3. But
Just get the whole Dreams community to work on it and provide voice acting. Yeah.
It's a
absolutely,
great plan. It's a great
it's a brilliant
plan.
idea. It's a
I
brilliant
hope it works because it's the only plan we have. So it better work.
idea. But I mean, in terms of the voices play obviously a really important role in fleshing out the world and providing context and atmosphere and really getting a sense of the tone. But I think the characters wouldn't work at all if it wasn't for the outstanding look of the characters and animation of those characters. Andy and Ben, I'm going to come to you guys next to talk to about the process by which you kind of build the characters and then animate them. So Ben, first and foremost for yourself, when it comes to kind of the characters, do you have something in mind when you start, or?
Andy makes the characters.
Oh, Andy, so I'm really sorry, Andy. For some reason, I had it in my head that Ben, you did some of the characters. I take it back. I'll just be talking to Andy. Andy, my apologies. So, exceptional characters that you create. Do you have kind of an image in your mind of what they already look like when you start? What's your
Well, thank you,
process?
first of all. Well, the process usually starts with Lottie asking me to, make something. She'll just send me a request for whatever animal and with a brief description.
A duck.
And yeah, she wants a duck, and I say, okay. Well, what does he do? And give me some more information. And I usually drive her crazy with questions, and then I send them. I sculpt it out. I'll usually show them the head first, and say, is this good? And then the whole outfit. And sometimes I get notes back, and sometimes they say it's great. And a couple times, I had to do some major overhauls, but for the most part, it's pretty smooth.
Okay. And so your actual process for creating the characters themselves, is that generally where you would always start with the head and then kind of build the body kind of around that, or?
Yeah, definitely. The heads have some animations to them, some just built-in procedural animations for the eyes looking around and the mouths moving for the voices. So I usually start there with a base template, so I can just copy off that logic really easily, and then I build the body, to match.
And in terms of their outfits, so going back to the advent calendar, for example, where you had the sheep and the female sheep that was in the really elegant flowing dress. I mean, again, talking about the progress in terms of the character design and the animation and the way they look. Again, from what I've seen in Pig Detective 3 so far, that's taking another leap forward. Um, did that kind of did you find that was another progressive challenge and that you found naturally taking? How did that kind of come about?
Well, to be honest, the biggest challenge was just getting permission from Sub and Lotta to, start doing my thing on it. Because when we started out, I think I started in Pig Detective 2, Cowboy Town. They just wanted, when they were doing the remaster, they wanted a few new outfits like cowboy boots, belt buckles, vests, that kind of thing. And I said, yeah, sure, I can do some clothes. And then the advent calendar, I did a few outfits for that. And it started to get more advanced. And then Mr. Sharkey for the advent calendar was the first one that I think I redid. Um, I kind of pushed the limits with that one, and it didn't really match the previous style of the characters. So after that, it was sort of like, well, do we go for it, go all out, or do we try to keep it more basic. I kind of kept pushing the limit a little bit, trying to get it more advanced. And now I'm committed for life, I think.
So
You
Can
must
I-
have,
yeah.
you must have
Go on.
worked up quite a tab. What's the
I was-
invoice at right now?
Well, I was gonna say, having that base puppet and being able to clone and starting from scratch, it really, I feel, I don't know about you, Andy, but I feel like it gives the whole aesthetic a bit more cohesiveness as well. Especially as I say, with all the sculptures for just set design and stuff like that, lighting, just having that cohesiveness really helps the game look and feel just a bit more polished.
Yeah, it's definitely been, a challenge, especially where we have different animals. Like when we did the fish people, it was really a departure from the ducks and cats and dogs that we'd been doing up until then. So whenever we introduce a new species, it's always kind of it's a little nerve-wracking, to make sure that they stay in the style.
One
For
of the
fish people, for the fish people, you had great examples because I already had made one for Pig Detective 3.
It was fabulous. It
Oh.
really was.
Yeah, it was in hindsight, it wasn't a tough decision at all. But back then, I get attached to my characters. So the characters we have, like obviously Pig Detective, who hasn't changed that much, but other Sheriff Dog also. And it felt like a big step and not necessarily the right one at the time. How much we progress the characters, but Andy did such a great job to keep the Pig Detective-ness of the characters. And they're still kind of bound by the previous designs, but they look so awesome now. And yeah, thank God we made that step back then.
and if sorry, go
You're
on.
telling me that Pig Detective hasn't had a visual upgrade this time around?
He doesn't have
no,
new outfits.
So
He
his,
has several different costumes.
Yeah,
his wardrobe has had an upgrade.
I actually really agree with the decision because I don't think you can change that face. It's something about it that those like
The
those eyes and
glassy-eyed look.
absolutely, he just looks straight past you, and like it wouldn't look right with the mouth or like ears or anything. It's just so right.
That's true.
Well-
Who did the realistic poster, the gritty remake poster? Who was that?
Oh, I want to
Burger
see what
Van.
Burger Van, yeah.
Burger
It's,
Van and Andy did a human-looking Pig Detective. So
Yeah.
two horror examples out there.
both horrifying, absolutely horrifying.
I think it was I was playing Pig Detective 2 earlier on today, and I think I sent Sean a message saying that I will never not get over the 1,000-yard stare that Pig Detective has. It's a brilliant look.
That's true, yeah.
I love the way Ben poses and animates him as well. Like, so it's just sometimes there'll be like a choice blink or just like a look just to the left, and it's the most hilarious thing. And I can't quite describe why I find it so funny, but it's just brilliant.
The sculpting of some of the characters. So I've seen the character cards that have been going up on Twitter, and it's got to be said, like they do look absolutely insanely detailed. Have you had to kind of readjust some of the techniques that you've been using? Have you found that you've learned new techniques as you've been creating the characters, Andy?
Well, I mean, there's definitely been a experience gathering. I'm just learning how to work in dreams and sculpt in dreams. I don't really think I had to invent any new techniques for this. It's just sort of getting into a rhythm of what works and what doesn't work. Because we do have some animations in these characters, but they're not fully animated. This isn't like all out Pixar. So we had to create default expressions that kind of work for every scenario, with only the minimal amount of animating needed in the moment.
Yeah, understood.
Actually, I think we are holding Andy back because he could do so much better, but he comes down to our level of goofiness of the characters to accommodate us. He would do much more if he was left to his own devices. But
Yeah, it's
here we
quite
are.
obvious. the Pick Detective legacy is holding Andy back. Yeah, it's true.
Sorry, Andy. It is
I
true.
don't think I would go that far. It's really nice to. I'm at a point now where I'm pretty much just doing the characters, and Ben's taken over the animating, and I can just do what I enjoy, and I don't have to worry about any other stuff that isn't my strength. So it's the best part of working in a team. So I would say the opposite. It's been very liberating to stick to my strength.
So Ben, to come to you then, how have you found picking up the animation? What's that process been like for you?
Yeah, so I didn't really know how to animate before the Dreamscom. What was that? The booth.
Yeah.
Andy done some animation in there, and then we're getting a bit tight for time. And I said I'd try and do some animation in there, but just a few like little looks and a few tiny movements. And then I pretty much just dug myself in for animating them in Big Detective. So then I just learned as I went, and I think you'll probably see some slight progression in animation, maybe. Although the scenes are sort of all jumbled all over the place. So
Yeah,
might
I
be
can
hidden.
definitely attest to the fact that the animation, the amount of animations, and some of the set pieces and things, without giving any spoilers, some of them are quite complex. I know Ed looked in a couple of those scenes and saw what was going on there, and was quite impressed as well with just the sheer level of detail on some of the scenes. So it's a really impressive task, and it's done very well, I think.
Yeah, we hadn't.
Andy's puppets make it really easy to just because they're already like, even when I was playing Big Detective 2, I didn't realize that it wasn't really animated. So like these new puppets, they just look really good, and they're really easy to sort of have their own expression, really.
Yeah, we hadn't
without having
planned
to
it at
do too
first.
much.
Usually I just put in two puppets and they talk to each other with different camera angles. That's all I do. Or maybe one puppet raises an arm or something. And when we gave it to Ben, and Ben has such a genius comedic timing or ideas when it comes to animating. So when we started replaying the game for bug testing and bug finding, it was like playing a new game. Every time when new animation came in, and all these little details were never. We planned a scene, they were obviously not part of the planning of the scene, and just in the background, some character doing some funny stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, Ben is really funny. We didn't know that.
Thanks.
So we've got the animation, we've got the voice actors, we've got the incredible sculpts, we've got some amazing scenes and scenarios. The setting for the next Pig Detective game is on a paradise island. That's a very, very different setting to the previous two games. So we've had the city for Pig Detective 1 and then Cowboy Town for Pig Detective 2. We're now going to Detox Island. Was that how did you approach that? Did that kind of present new challenges for you in terms of, I suppose, every aspect of it, in terms of sound design and art direction, and how was that process? Lotte, if we can start with you.
The worst, I think, were the palm trees, because tropical islands have lots of palm trees. So that was kind of where we started. We made a palm tree, it looked bad. Ben came along and said, "Can't I do something for you?" He said, "Can you please make a palm tree? Oh, it looks so bad." And the last thing that we changed about the game, the last major change, was replacing every single palm tree, because they looked so bad.
Wow.
Because
It's
the,
true.
Yeah.
the
That
art
first palm tree
in
was horrible.
Dream has evolved so much in those months.
And in terms of the actual kind of, so the standard tropes of an island, you've got to have, presumably you've got to have water. Now, water is, there are very few examples of really exceptional water, but I
Yeah,
think
our water isn't exceptional. Our water looks bad. Just don't look at it.
But I think,
I'm really
I mean,
selling it.
you're on the island. Don't look at the
I
water.
think so. The water hasn't changed since summer last year, so and it looks like it. Yeah.
Who cares?
No,
Perfectly adequate.
that's fine, but it works within the context of the game. You know, if you had hyper realistic
system.
water,
We have a system. Yeah, the blue stuff is the water, and the green and brown stuff is the island.
perfect. Yeah,
Green and
that's
brown
all you
stuff.
need.
And if you remember that, you'd be all set for this island.
Perfect.
The thing that struck me actually when I saw some of this was the architecture and the period hotel, and I guess that was 7 initially in terms of how it's all laid out and the attention to detail for that actual time period. That I think is where the art in this game really shines. Did you? I was going to ask Seb about like,
Yeah.
is that your sort of like, is that your thing, architectural sort of design and level layout?
Not that I know about. No, not maybe. Who knows? Yeah, but I'm not a big architecture fan or something. But yeah, but I just looked at some.
He's lying. He's so lying. When
don't
everybody
have
else is painting the
architecture
miniatures
books.
for a game, he builds the surroundings.
Yeah, that's true. I always like building little set pieces for miniature games. Yeah, so maybe it's true.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that we have we've got a Discord that we discuss things in, and it's broken down to channels of like sound design and art and animation and all that. I think the big thing is reference pictures a lot of the time. If someone's going to make something, it's really useful to sort of have a few ideas about what kind of direction you want to take it in, and reference pictures are the most useful thing, and that goes for anything outside of Picture Detective, anything in Dreams. Reference material, in fact, not just pictures. You're looking, when you're talking about sound, you go, well, we want a song that gives this kind of impression or gives this kind of vibe, and you go, okay, well, have you got anything similar that you think you want to hit the tone of? And it's really useful to be given those materials, and Seb and Lot are really good at finding those materials and going, yeah, kind of push it in this direction. But I think that applies for the architecture as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think the hotel is a wide mashup of different existing architectures, and same for other buildings on the island. Yeah.
So when Lotta and Sebastian, when you're kind of working together on this, do you kind of almost do a very rough layout of how everything will work for any particular given area, and then go to, you know, Ben, Andy, Sean, whoever it may be, and say, okay, I need these things? Do you have it all pre-blocked almost? What's the process there?
We try, but it doesn't work because we have a plan, and the plan doesn't survive the first encounter with whatever we're doing, because new ideas come in, new people come in, new people bring new ideas. So after Cowboy Town was such a mess, logic-wise and building-wise. We said, okay, let's try to plan this out in advance, and we planned it out a bit, and then we made it up along the way when it comes to what is exactly where. As Lotte said, the story was relatively finished from the beginning. Yeah, I wish we could plan it better in before, but I think our work process doesn't allow it really. Yeah.
I think we would get bored, because if you plan it all out and then you do it and it takes a long time to do it, it's not much fun, is it?
So it's more of a dynamic creation. Just to sort, yeah.
We're not a professional studio or anything, but we have the luxury we can do that. It gets a bit stressful in the end when we have to check and fix and test, because everything was so agile in progression. But everybody should have fun on the team, and I think it's way more fun to have this approach of adding things, changing things.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. One of the questions that I kind of want to circle back round to is something that you've just mentioned about, you know, Cowboy Town. You said that logic-wise that was a mess. Were there kind of lessons learned essentially from Pig Detective 1 and Pig Detective 2? So when you then sat down to do Pig Detective 3, you were like, okay, we need to make sure we don't do these things.
Yeah, but very specific Dreams-related questions or lessons learned was have all your persistent variables in one place, keeps them as an external element and updates them into the scene and not have these variables all over the place. Test systems in place, mark them as a test system so they don't will be let on ticked on when somebody plays it. And yeah, I think that's the big ones I've learned from Cowboy Town, especially when you have somewhere in the scene a variable modifier left and you have no idea why your stupid counter ticks up and you have no idea where you left it, which stupid microchip from the 1000 microchips you have spread all over the place. Yeah.
Yes. So what you do, you've got a single microchip with all of your global persistent variables in it that is saved as an element in its own right. And presumably, if you then have to add a new
I had to
variable,
force myself only make changes to this element and update this element to all the scenes, because I have a very creative approach to logic, and I feel sorry for all you guys who had to work through my logic afterwards to put in some lines or lighting or something. But it's wires are all over the place, and I admire people like John Beach who can really organize it stuff, but it's not how my brain works. I put things down, I try things out, maybe a selector here will work and maybe a button here will work or something.
You're selling yourself.
Yeah.
Yourself short. It's so organized. I mean, I have actually.
It
really is.
okay,
I've looked inside
it's
some
way,
of your.
okay, it's way more organized than in Cowboy Town, but it's still it's the keyframes are not named.
I mean, I can speak a little to that because I've had to go in and put in some last minute VO or last minute sound effects, and to be honest, even in places like I haven't got a logical mind at all, but even in places where I couldn't find where I needed to put something, if I go on the Discord and speak to Seb, he knows where it is, so that's what really matters. I can just go, Seb, how does this work? How does
my
this actually
brain
work?
is only Pick Detective 3. I can't wait for that thing to get released and done.
But
I think-
but Seb is a really good sort of project leader in that regard, because in all of these scenes, I don't know if this was a last minute thing, but when I was sort of like looking in at the end, there was he's put in like these test cases so that he's actually made it easier for other developers to go in there and just like hit buttons and you can test out how this happens.
Yeah, he
that's
made them
well
just
said.
for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was just me because I couldn't be.
It was because I was so ashamed of my logic. But it was the last minute thing, but I think it's also a lesson learned. Have this already built in to trigger really specific test cases for that scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you-
Keeps it.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, what you're saying is that you've managed to create automated testing within your dream.
No, not automated, but with such an kind of open world map, you can't test one scene because the scene the scene depends heavily of stuff in other scenes you will not test in this scenario. So I have to build in just a button with a few variables or whatever needs to be triggered if you want to test a specific, like a scene of dialogue or animation or something in the scene, and so put in a big red microchip with test cases on it and have a few buttons in there so people can go in easily and try things out, fix things.
Yeah. So without a spoiler, so let's say you have a big switch, and when you switch that on, that says that you have X item in your inventory. So you wouldn't be able to test that scene. Let's say you want a bit of dialogue, you want to speak to someone, and you don't have that thing in your inventory. You can't test that until you go and get that thing, and that requires you to play the game through to that point and get the thing. Whereas if you put this test case in, it tricks the inventory and thinking, oh yeah, you've picked up that thing, and so then you can test that dialogue. Does that make sense? Does that clear it up?
Yeah, so
And that's really useful for especially for checking audio cues and stuff like that. I don't want to play through the game 100 times just to check a tiny little change every time. What I want to do is say, yeah, I've picked up item X, and now I can listen back really quickly, go into the scene, listen back, and make adjustments, come back out, go back in, and the test variable is still active, and then just turn it off when I'm done, and it goes back to how it was in the first place. It's really useful.
And it's something that I hadn't considered. I hadn't considered before. So some of the projects I've done in the past have had similar issues, and I hadn't thought of doing kind of the test button process. So that's definitely something I'll take away from it for sure, because I can completely understand where you're coming from when you've got the multi-scene things that you need to test. So no, I can certainly take that on.
Yeah, when you set it up, Ricky, put in a big red text displayer with test or something on it, so you always know when you start the scene. Okay, that's still on, because we had that a lot, because it's easy to forget to turn it off, and it will ruin your whole game and playthrough when you enter a scene where something is randomly added to your inventory or taken away.
Yeah.
True.
I'm going to come to Ed briefly on this one, and this isn't an elbow in the ribs, but I want to touch on something that Sebastian mentioned, and that was that he felt like his logic was spaghetti logic, or it wasn't very well laid out, etc., etc. Now, some time ago, I don't remember who it was, and I'm not pointing fingers or naming names.
Uh-oh.
Someone put up a screenshot of a behind the scenes from one of the scenes in Art's Dream showing the
yeah.
logic.
Wow.
Now, for the benefit of Sebastian, I just want to say that I think we've all seen spaghetti logic, and I don't think there's anything to kind of be worried about when it comes to not feeling like you've done it right. Fair?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Art's Dream was a really long process, because it sort of represented the development of dreams. It was in development alongside the tool and all the editors. So it had so many people coming in there and editing things and iterating and sharing and collaborating. You know, tons of people going in and changing things. And naturally, like, some of those tools have changed, and they actually, don't have the ability to tidy up your wires when that was made. So yeah, that was that's horrendous, to be honest. But like, actually having seen like what is messy logic and what is tidy logic, I can say confidently that the Team Pig Detective are amongst the tidiest for sure.
Now, just while I've got you, Ed, I want to talk briefly about sound design. Now, your most recent stream, you talked about reverb and echo and atmospherics. How complex has the sound design proved to be in Pig Detective 3? How kind of involved has that become?
I think it's a question for Reddish, really. I can attest that, like, as when I was talking about reverb and echo and all that sort of stuff, the basis of that stream was at the very beginning of it, where I was talking about routing. And just like Seb was saying, it's important to set up good groundwork for your logic. It's the same thing for your audio, really. If you set up good sort of processes for, like, setting all of your VO to go to the VO channel, and then having those channels in the scene and having the reverbs from there, the groundwork was already pretty much there from Seb and Reddish. So yeah, it's sorry, what was the question?
That was so on brand for Pig Detective. What's happening?
So Reddish Bolt, let's switch to you then in terms of the sound design. So in terms of the sound design, how complex has that proved to be in Pig Detective 3, and what's your kind of creative process and journey been like throughout the course of Pig Detective 3's development?
To be honest, I'd never really touched sound design per se in a great way before this. I mean, a lot of the original sound design is in there already from Seb and Lotta when they're building the game. And what I've come in and done is just sort of looked at sort of major scenes and seen where there's gaps and think, oh well, that would make a sound. That would make a sound, like Foley stuff. Like someone's getting punched in the face or something, and there's no sound for that. So yeah, that's been mostly just sort of like layering that up, and then the mixing comes later. So yeah, it's been interesting. I've learned a lot. We did make some sounds, we made some sounds ourselves, just with what we could find in the room. The most interesting thing is the post sort of sound design. I think is when, like, there's certain scenes that you think, oh, that character's just sort of stood there, not really doing much, and really they should be. So sometimes you have to reapproach VO. Sort of people who have given you VO and go, can you just do an extra line here and there? And I think a lot of people have been very accommodating for that. So that was interesting, is knowing that your first sound design pass won't necessarily be what's the final product. You may need to go back in and edit once the animation's done. So it's kind of like that to and fro. You go animation, then you go sound design, and you go, man, now it needs a bit more animating. Oh, now it needs a bit more sound design. So it's very easy to get to a point where you think, I'm just adding nothing to it now. I'm just adding for the sake of adding. So you've got to know where the limit is, but also, yeah, it's been really fun to just sort of just fill it with as much as possible. That's been really good.
And I think that's a really good point that I kind of want to ask. It's a question for everyone, and I don't expect kind of everyone to go around the table and kind of respond. But I think, how do you know when it's done? You know, because so for example, if I'm looking
It's
at
never
one of
done.
my
It's done when I say so.
Perfect answer.
It's true though, all of you. Everybody's always like, oh no, that's not good because I did it. And then everybody else gathers and says, no, it's brilliant, you're brilliant.
Guilty.
They are all so modest. I hate them.
There's our soundbite for this podcast. Lotta says, "I hate them."
It
Get that
really
on
does
the, get
need.
that on the
Quote me on
case.
that.
It totally needs someone to come in and say, like, yeah, it's done. You just leave it. This is good enough. Because otherwise, yeah, like as Reddish said, it would just go on forever. So, and Lotta's really good at that.
100%,
Just say,
yeah,
like,
agreed.
that's exactly what I wanted, and no
Yeah,
more.
I mean, you need room above. We have to make more games and they have to be better than the last one, or everybody will say, oh my god, you're not getting better, guys. So
Yeah,
just
that's
take it
why
to
we
the
made
next
this one
game,
so
make
bad.
it better there. Yeah.
So
Oh,
coming
you're
back to
brilliant. I love you, really. All of you. Sorry.
no, it's fine. Coming back to you, Sean, briefly. Not briefly, but coming back to you, Sean, talking about sound design and then segueing slightly into the music. In Pig Detective 2, there were a number of tracks that were pulled from the Dreamiverse, but I know you had some input into some of the tracks there. Compared to Pig Detective 2, I understand that you've done the vast majority of the music for Pig Detective 3. How has that process been, and how have you approached that?
Yeah, firstly, it's quite it was at first it was quite an intimidating task. I don't really consider myself a musician in the sense that I've never really had any formal training or lessons. I sort of just played guitar from about 15 and sort of just sort of learned and taught myself really from YouTube videos and talking to mates. So, but the Dreams tools do actually make it really easy, especially if you have a little bit of knowledge about how scales work and things like that. The most challenging thing is sort of making music that fits the scene, I suppose. Like I've never had any call to make a cheerful island song. You know, I grew up listening to punk rock, so that's never been in my wheelhouse. So you know, you listen to a song again about the reference pieces. You listen to a track, and you think, okay, what are the key instruments here? Okay, well maybe there's some steel drums. Maybe there's maybe there's this. It's in a major scale. You know, it's upbeat, and you try and pick out those elements, and you try and make something to that. And yeah, so that's been really fun to try and the challenge is Lotto will come up with an idea. She'll say, I need a track for this. It needs to kind of be this kind of feel. Or sometimes it will just be, oh, I need a track for this scene. And I'll go in and look at the scene. I'll be like, what do I feel should be here? With Cowboy Town, it was relatively easy because all of them were Western tracks. And that lends itself to guitar, which is my key instrument. But with this, yeah, a lot of other different instruments, a lot of different genres and sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Practices, if you know what I mean. So yeah, really interesting to try and surmount that challenge. And sometimes I don't feel I've made it, but I'm tough. And again, you have to finish at some point. So yeah, sometimes you have to kill your darlings and go, okay, this is it, this is the one. That's the final product, I think.
Have you found that it's expanded your kind of music knowledge as well by proxy?
Oh, 100%. There's been certain points where I've had to learn how jazz chords work in relation to jazz scales. I'm still not quite there. It's the dark arts. But yeah, I found that really interesting to play with jazz, and yeah, I found I've become better for it. And I've also had to do a lot of vocal work, which isn't necessarily something I think I'm great at. But you know, if you find the right range, you can sometimes get away with it, basically.
So you've learned a jazz chord.
I've learned the jazz chord, yeah. At least one or two.
One or two.
Yeah.
So in terms of the music and thinking about the soundtrack as a whole, are there tracks that have kind of become like everybody in the team has gone, yeah, wow, that's amazing, that particular track that you just keep coming back to?
100%. Yeah, Reddish's music is incredible, and there's a few times where I've just been like testing this stuff. Sorry, I'm just jumping in here. because I know British probably won't toot his own horn, but like there's been
Absolutely correct.
there's been bits where like you're approached and you often doubt yourself on this stuff, but you just absolutely nail the vibe and theme like straight away. There's been I think what I really love about the music that you've done for this game is that you approach this generally from a songwriter perspective, and so you always bring a really lovely sort of like storytelling quality to them. That makes sense. There's one track that gets
No,
used quite a bit throughout the game. Well, not I guess through the second half of the game, and it sort of moved me to tears. It's really good.
Wow.
oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say.
I'm not going to hear you say like, "Oh, I'm not so good at that." So I just wanted to shout
Rubbish.
it. No, it's really good.
That's incredible. Ed, I'm going to ask you a question again that'll be slightly left field and maybe a little unfair. So feel free to tell me to move on. But in terms of working with this team who are not qualified professional game developers and are going through these learning processes, how have you found that, given that there's no bones about it, you are a game industry professional working for a studio? How has that been? What's that been like from you as kind of almost like the experience looking in?
Oh man, that is a really hard question. There is essentially no difference, if I'm being like 100% honest. Like they all operate as if they were like trained devs. It's kind of uncanny how good they have got over the course of 3 games at like honing their experiences and production. And everything seems to run like a really well-oiled machine. Sometimes a lot more so than like actual professional development does, and that's sort of one of the most sort of like joyous things about coming to it. But I think it's because they all treat it as if it's their happy place, it's their hobby as well, so they bring so much enthusiasm to their work. But in terms of like how they're working and like the things that they do, they're just absolutely smashing it.
That's amazing. That's properly awesome, and it's really lovely to hear as well, because it's clear the passion that everyone has for this project and the previous projects that people have been involved in. There's so much of it, and it's obviously a labor of love. I suppose Andy and Ben, you guys are, in terms of geography, you're the farthest flung. How has it been working as a distributed team? How have you found that, Andy, being on a different time zone? Has that proved challenging?
Well, there's pros and cons to it. The advantage is that when I want to go work on a scene, everyone else is asleep, so I can just go into any scene that I want. And with the exception of Ben, maybe, I don't really have to worry about stepping on anyone's toes. The hard part is that everyone else is talking. Everyone in Europe is talking about the game in our Discord while I'm at work. I'm at my job, keeping an eye on all of this, hilarious talk and people posting their progress on the amazing things that they're doing. And I'm getting requests for what to do, and then I get home to go work, and everyone else is asleep. so sometimes it's a little lonely. But then I get to surprise them. So, they get to wake up and see what I did the next morning. And, it's fun.
Ben, from your point of view, would you kind of mirror that? I know you pretty much don't sleep, but the question still has to be asked.
When I wake up, I check Discord and there's like a whole heap just to catch up on. So I think they're more active when I'm asleep. So it's good to have something to read in the morning and find out what's happening. But yeah, it doesn't feel like we're an international team. Like,
but am I right in saying that you guys have never actually all spoken to each other before in real life on a call like this?
First time.
Yeah.
I have never spoken to any of them except for Sam.
Ah, that's amazing.
I've spoken to Dirty Harold once on
that
stream and listened to his kids' recorder recital, which is really fun. And I've met Ed in real life at the meet once, and that's it. I've never spoken to Seb, Lotta, or Andy in my life, so it's really nice to actually hear the voices and actually have a proper conversation.
Yeah, I wanted to say that. Nice to talk to you all.
Yeah, nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
nice to meet you.
Weekly calls from now
Hey
on.
guys.
Yeah.
It's a little bit surreal that 3 games in and having been working together at various levels over that period of time, it's a little bit surreal to kind of be here when you're now actually talking to each other for the first time in real
Oh,
life.
no, we have not been working together for 3 games. This is the first game we're making together.
So, in terms of the Pig Detective 3, the core team certainly, but I know that Reddish both did some music for Pig Detective 2. Is that right?
Yeah, but Pig
There's some
Detective 2 was
voices.
Yeah.
finished when we approached him about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
music, and we approached
wasn't really
Andy about
much.
the boots and the belts.
Oh wow! Okay.
It was all there.
Wow.
We just added onto it.
Can I just say,
So we
I've been there
didn't
for
have
3
that.
games. So,
Such a diva. Such a diva. I keep saying it, but
Yeah. How? I suppose the question for everyone else is, how has it been working with one of the people from Media Molecule? Has that been intimidating?
But we
Well,
haven't been working with him. You always make it sound like we're working with him. He's a voice actor.
this is play.
way to play it down, Lotta. Played it down.
He's not
He's
a
only a
pig
voice
either.
actor.
My
Yeah,
apologies. My
This
apologies.
is all fun times. This is all just
He's
work.
been sneaking into my brain, asking me to spoil him about the story all the time, and I've been holding him off for so long. But
Lotta,
he just won't stop.
she's so tight on spoilers. Like, often I'm reading lines and I have no idea what I'm saying or like why I'm saying it. So I like, oh yeah,
Exactly like Pig Detective.
oh right, now it all makes sense.
Do you deliberately add in some extra lines that you know you won't use at all, Lotta?
No comment on that.
you-
Maybe.
You better not have.
we did make you say so there is boats, and we used that when we played with Wild at Better's amazing kayak scene and put Pig Detective in there.
Yeah, but
And
it's cut
we
from the
put
game.
your line about the boats in there.
I love how you guys you use every single millisecond of audio that people send you, like the
Yeah.
the outtakes
Oh, yeah, we do.
from Greg. It was just like, right, we have got 10 minutes of Greg Miller. Let's make the most of it. Every
I
second
asked him
counts.
first. He
Oh, you
said
did?
he could.
Oh, that was nice.
And we used
I think
everything, and maybe way too early. Reddish Boat puts together some early draft of music and put it in the scene immediately. And he's like, "But it's not ready. I need to tinker with it for months." Or Andy puts together a character early draft and it's duplicated in multiple ducks. And
It's definitely one of the pleasurable things of working with these guys, because like you can see how much joy other people's work gets them about this. It excites them about their own sort of ideas, and it's a self-perpetuating sort of like play. It's really good.
Yeah, that's the thing about the voice actors, actually. All of them are in the game because what they did impressed us on some level. We saw their work, or we saw how they presented themselves in social media or somewhere, and we liked what they did. We liked their humor, we liked their style. So we start thinking, how can we get them in there? And some of the roles are actually custom made for them,
Oh,
although
really?
they don't know in some cases.
So when you were writing some of the characters, you were writing them with the mind of, this is going to be a character for this
Yeah,
person.
precisely.
Wow.
One of them being the bellhop, which I wrote with Sean Vertigo in mind at the beginning of the game. Before the game even existed, I knew it would have a bellhop, and that would be Sean Vertigo.
What was it about Sean that made you think that guy's a bellhop?
You should drop in and watch his stream sometime.
Oh, really?
It's not
Okay.
exactly that he's a bellhop, but he has that kind of personality that just cheers you up every time you see him. Which is not what he does as the bellhop, actually. Huh.
I suppose the
Oh
same
well,
with
that's acting.
Granny, right?
Granny's
It
the most
happened with
obvious,
Granny too, yeah. Yeah, Granny's very obvious. I wrote the whole part and I hadn't even approached her, and I thought, oh my god, what if she doesn't want to do it? What am I
Casey.
going to do with that part? Yeah, Casey.
Casey or Reddish Boat.
So you say like you sort of like hear a quality in someone's voice, and then you sort of think, oh, that would be really great for this part. So again, I must go back to, what is your problem with Tom Dent? I really don't understand what you got against the guy.
I don't have anything against him, but let's face it, Tom is just a cat. He is a cat.
And he's a great cat at that.
He's such a great cat.
It's a great character, can confirm.
But to go back to your point, Freaky, about working with Ed, I think it's fair to say that I'd probably be the one that's benefited the most from his expertise, considering his field. Certainly, when it comes to sort of mixing and mastering, I've definitely learned a lot. And even if it's just sort of setting up a template sort of microchip in order to be able to manage all your reverb options and all that. So I saw that kind of thing before he chucked it in his stream, and that's been really beneficial for me. So it's useful to have that sort of experience in the room, so to speak.
You're very kind.
So I'm conscious of time, and I don't want this to kind of run over for too much longer. But I just wanted to kind of say, so Pig Detective 3 is coming out tomorrow. It is, I believe it currently is actually already out in the Dreamiverse. Is that correct?
It's not exactly out. It is released, which
Oh,
means
okay.
we've managed to get it up there, which was a big concern.
Okay.
And it's there, and it is protected by a password. And actually, I have worked out a quiz for people who want to know the password.
Ooh,
Because
quiz.
yeah, it was quite a long quiz. It was the password consists of 5 letters, and I made difficult questions and answers for each of those letters, but we just didn't get to it. We didn't get to do it, so we have to find one clue, so people will be able to guess the password.
Things just got interesting.
Yeah, it really got interesting. So we have Saturday the 14th everywhere in the world, except for where Ben is. Because where Ben is, it is already 3 a.m. on Sunday.
Of course.
Yes, because he's in Australia. So, also in Australia are cute little animals. Cute, not the spiders and snakes that he always sends us pictures of that are under his couch.
But
They're cute ones.
Sharko only had Sharko has 6 letters.
Fluffy ones.
Okay.
Ones you like to hold and.
Okay. Yes.
Do you need any more clues?
No, I think I have a good idea of what that could be.
So if you put that in the generator that we've put there, in the password generator, that little fluffy, adorable animal from Australia, then you can access the game right now. The full game.
World exclusive. World exclusive. Fluffy Australian animal.
Cute.
Cute, fluffy Australian animal is the clue for the password to access the game right now. I can hear the people scurrying to the PlayStations and getting them turned on, ready to try all sorts of answers and entries.
Yeah, see you guys. I'm off. Bye.
So, Pig Detective 3. I suppose that the only logical question that I have to kind of ask now is what's next? What
Well,
happens
everybody
after
said
Pig
that
Detective
they
3?
want a week off, or 2 or 3 or a year. I don't know.
I think
Okay.
people have some own projects that are good. The
Okay.
Cube game from Ben, and I think
Ben wants
British
to make
Boat has
jazz.
this guitar game, and
I want to
everything
see
got
Shaz.
pushed. Yeah, everything got pushed back because of Pick
So I
Detective.
give them all 2 weeks, and then I'll see you on Monday.
She's
Yeah,
very
that's-
generous.
2 weeks seems reasonable. 2 weeks seems reasonable.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going to be able to make good games in 2 weeks.
Seems completely fair. But no, I'm super excited to play Pig Detective 3, which is accessible now. I suppose just a huge thank you to everybody who has joined today. It's been lovely to be part of this.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for making us talk to each other, which we never did.
No,
I'm trying.
It's been lovely to see the progress that's been involved in this and to see it develop over what has been undeniably a huge long period of time, but to see it now all coming together and to hear you all still speak so passionately about the project is amazing. So I just want to say huge congratulations to all of you for all of your various roles that you've had in getting this to where it is today. Very, very best of luck with the launch. And yeah, I think you should all be incredibly proud of what you guys have done. Yeah.
Can
and
we
look
can we just
forward
get can we just get a little thank you to Ben as well for staying up so
Oh,
late
yeah.
or getting up so early? I don't know, but to accommodate all of
Yeah,
us.
I went to bed
Tell
early.
them, tell them why. Tell them why.
How are you feeling? You
Oh,
still
I'm
awake?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just.
still up. Oh, good.
But no, thank you to everyone who was able to join today. I know that it's super early for Ben, and I know that it's a weird time for Andy as well. So thank everybody for making the time available to join us today. It's been an incredible conversation. It's been really rewarding to hear you all speak so passionately about this project. And best of luck with all of your individual projects that come along. And I wait with bated breath to hear word whispers on the future winds about Pig Detective 4.
Oh, we're making it. I was joking about the other projects.
Excellent. Good to know.
Making Pig Detective 4.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Pig Detective 4 is happening. Do we have any
It is
clues?
happening. What do you mean clues? Oh yeah.
In
The
space.
clue is play in space is the last one.
So Pig Detective 4 will be the last one.
No.
Oh, okay.
The clue is play Pig Detective 3 and you get a pretty good idea of where Pig Detective 4 will take you.
Another holiday.
That would be
Holiday
nice.
from the holiday.
You wish.
Well, that's it from my side. As I say, thanks so much to everyone who has joined us on the stream live. Thank you, everyone who has taken the time to listen to the podcast after the fact. Thank you so much to Sebastian, Lotta, Ben, Dirty Harold's Breslin, Sean Reddish Boat, Ed209B, and Andy, aka Andy Mation. You have been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. We will call it a day there, and best of luck to everyone who's going to now try and access the game with the magical clue for the password.
Oh, and before we go, just a quick thank you to Danny Hyperdude for doing the sound.
Yes, special thanks. So yeah, that is us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Have fun,
We're
everyone.
offline now, are we?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, are we offline?
Say swear
now?
words.
No, I don't know. Say
No.
swear words, yeah. Danny, are we offline?
Probably me curry.
You need to
Didn't
swear.
take the break.